Okay, so first things first. Who am I? I'm Greg. I guess pretty much all of you know that. Almost all of you. I'm on the board of directors for the Oasis. The CEO Joyce is my car insurance agent, and in 2004, I went in and we were talking about music and how she wanted a place. She had this idea for opening a teen center that would be primarily music based. And I said I would help. And if you offer help to Joyce, you are stuck forever. So 10 years later, still here volunteering, and it's absolutely wonderful. So what the Oasis is a privately funded, meaning we don't get any tax money or anything like that. It's not costing you guys anything unless you are coming here and investing. Whether it's a donation or you come to one of our fundraisers. In August, we have a golf outing, Rib Fest, which is my favorite. I'm usually a judge, and it's great until you the afterwards when you feel like because you literally ate like 9 slabs of ribs, but it's wonderful. We have a car show. All these different events help keep this place open because. When I was younger, I had this dream of maybe somehow opening my own venue because I thought it would be awesome. And the longer you're in music, the more you realize venues pop up and die off very, very quickly because they're impossible to run. So that's what makes this place special to me is that, one, it's still around, and it probably will be. But, more than anything, it's being promoted properly and funded properly by people from within the community. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And I've been on the board as a music director, meaning I help fix this stuff when it breaks. I help with the staff in terms of booking or anything really that falls under the entertainment music side of the Oasis or the events. So from there, I've been in bands for a long time. In high school, I was in terrible cover bands, and then I realized I preferred to play original music, so I played terrible original music. Yeah, everyone's there at some point. So my big taste of like real music. I was in a band called Overtone, and we were fortunate to play across the country and play a lot of cool venues, and you learn a lot. And that was like where I really found that I got my full music education in terms of dealing with people trying to take advantage of artists who have stars in their eyes. Especially me when I was 18 and 19 years old, had dreams of making it. Making it's a lot different, 15-ish years later. But from there, that opened the door to meeting a ton of other cool musicians, and those musicians, one's sitting here on a computer. He's my musical life mate, and that allowed me to experience other new musical projects. For me, myself, I ended up being kind of a hired gun musician more often than not. When someone else needed a guitar player for a band, I was usually the guy to call because early on in my musical upbringing, I spent a lot of time trying to be a great guitar player. And I feel I'm a good guitar player. So because of that, I could learn songs quickly and I held value like that. So I've been in a bunch of different bands, some longer than others. Most recently, I was in a folk project called Vena. We just kind of played indie folk music where I played guitar and mandolin, and sadly, I had to play some keyboards, which is not good for me or anyone else. I played some accordion for it, which was fun. And we got to play shows around the area before the band decided to call it a day. And even that, being in that brought out some pretty cool new experiences because that particular project was on a small indie label out of Ohio. So that was every musical experience you're going to have is going to be a new learning experience and dealing with the smaller label, they put out one of our records on vinyl, which was pretty cool, and it was interesting to see that unique business deal. But we're going to talk about those kinds of things later. So, as in 2004, I started my own business of teaching music, and that turned into something I had never anticipated. And these days, fortunately, most of you guys are all students in one way or another, or have been. So I've taught a lot of area bands, a handful that I think are still active: Libria, Wea, Two Star, questionable. I don't know if they're still active or not. Fett the Younger, I see you guys, Bon. Exit to Enter, Broad Street Cleaners, Killing Beautiful, all either young, very young, to old and crotchety bands in the local area scene. So I feel like for the most part I'm still, even though at the moment I don't have a band that's currently gigging, I'm still pretty tapped into what's going on out there. And part of the business has turned into a recording studio, so I have a lot of experience with recording and mixing projects for various formats. Like I said, working with Venna, having to get some files ready for vinyl, which is you have to come at it from a different approach than just throwing it up on iTunes. Although, it's just a random segue, the whole mastered for iTunes stamp that you see now is just crap. Not that I got a lot of opinions, and I'll try to keep most of them to myself. Okay, I also have a degree in entertainment and music media management from Columbia College, which is not very valuable, in my opinion. I wanted to get a degree in music, but at the same time, I didn't know what a degree in music would be able to afford me, because my perspective is not what you go to college for, it's what you graduate college for. And graduating college for a degree in music these days, a lot of times unless you have like education background, Dan, where it's a little safer, if you just go for a degree in jazz performance or something like that, you'll be jazz performing people for filling their Starbucks cups most of the time, because you're not going to find a real gig. Sadly, I wish that wasn't the case. So I tried to find something that was a little more valuable, and the generic business and marketing and management aspects to what my degree has, I thought would be a little more universal. As it turns out, I haven't really needed it a whole lot, aside from some small business dealings in the music industry. But it's part of my background, so I figured I'd mention it. So why are we doing this? Years ago, my friend here at the table started something called the LCRC, and it was Lake County Record Collective, right? So those specific initials. The idea was a group of bands would meet somewhat often. So the plan here for what this will be is third Tuesday of every month, 7 to 9, we'll be here. Whether or not people show up, I'll be here, hopefully. And the idea was these bands would come and they'd network together, and they would talk and say, "Hey, I've got a show. I saw that you have a show this week, coming up downtown. Would you mind putting up some flyers, because I'm playing there a few weeks later?" Just simple things like that. Working together is so much more effective than all of this, this headbutting that you see with local bands, where they're always, it seems to be a competition when it shouldn't be. Everyone wins if it's a community, and it's unfortunate that that has to be said, but that's just seems to be the case these days. So I really liked what they did, and it was a different era then. Part of what made the LCRC cool is that it was promoted and branded as its own entity. There were T-shirts. You could get T-shirts, not for a band in Lake County, but for the LCRC, which was supporting all bands, and they were very, very localized to Lake County. So one was said you are passing through entry A. So if you've ever gone to Gurney Mills, that probably has some value to you. But they also released a compilation, and the compilation had a collection of two songs from a pile of bands in the area, and you might say, oh, Overtone's on that compilation. I'll pick it up, and I believe they were free, right?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, they're free. And
all the bands basically pitched in. Each band got 2 songs on the CD. Dating ourselves here.
Yeah.
Each band got 2 songs on the CD, and then we all basically collectively pitched in. I did the artwork, and then we had pressed several thousand. And that was back in the days of street TV, which I don't know if you're going to get into that.
yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, so different era, of course, but basically got several thousand CDs out in people's hands at a time when that was kind of a viable means to get your music out.
Yeah, I know this is going to sound crazy, but once upon a time, we should probably start at the beginning. There were compact discs. They were like these plastic things, and you could listen to music on them. Now that's been replaced with the internet. So these days it's easier for you guys to link a YouTube video on a Facebook event to say, hey, check out our music. But I personally, I still believe that it's far more effective to walk up to someone, shake their hand, and say, hey, you're at this concert because you like this band. I'm here because I think you would like my band. And they're going to, in theory, they will listen to it. I feel like I don't have any statistics or anything like that, but it's got to improve your odds as opposed to just randomly spamming Facebook events saying, hey, we're playing, check out this song. I don't know. I never listen to them. I don't know if you guys do. I've clicked the link enough times to know I'm probably not going to like what I hear on the other end of that. So, usually the people who are spamming the most is the music I want to hear the least. But that's me. And like I said, I'm kind of opinionated and jaded. So what I'm hoping that we can do for this event is, and I assume it was going to start slow, but I want to make this something that the local music community can count on and say, I know that I can go network with bands. If I show up here on a Tuesday, or the third Tuesday of every month, I can meet up with other bands. And in theory, if you are all playing, playing the same game, and you guys are all working together, everyone wins. Every time, everyone wins. It doesn't matter if one's a death metal band and one's a country band. You can all learn and network from each other. One kid that I was hoping would be here, I was going to use him as an example, Griff from the band Exit to Enter. His band's played at the Bottom Lounge a couple times. I don't know if you guys have been down the Bottom Lounge. It's a sweet venue, and it's not easy to play there. So to have someone in the room where he can say, oh yeah, this is the guy I talked to, and he can hook up the show. It's that simple, and it's network. Because you don't know who knows, a booking agent, or who knows, a decent studio. I'll throw my hat in the ring there, or a decent graphic artist. He's the best I know over there. Things like that make all the difference in the world. So it's, in my opinion, it's worth setting something up. And Zach, an Oasis employee here, he referenced an event that Justin and I had done a handful of years ago, where it was something similar to this, but instead of it being a monthly thing, we just did 3 in 1 month, where we discussed things that we had learned from being in bands for a long time. So what we plan on doing is, in theory, once a month, we're going to focus on one topic. Tonight's a little free form, just because, like I said, I want to kind of spread the message and explain what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. But some things that I have in mind that will be happening. One of my former students now works at the Bottom Lounge. He's a mixing engineer. He was actually the first mixing engineer for the Oasis. And he's going to come down here, and he's going to be a guest lecturer, and he's going to talk about one, stage and show etiquette, because sadly that needs to be discussed. Maybe not for some of you guys, because you've had me yell at you often enough, but it's worth noting, because he sees bands all day, every day, and he has some pretty good tips in terms of how you can butter up a venue, your booking agent, your engineer, who is mighty important. And then he'll also talk about some of the venues that he's worked at, and things in Chicago, Chicago centric. He worked at Beat Kitchen for a little while, something like that, where you guys can actually say, oh, I have either a contact there, who knows, what a sound engineer will be able to help you out with, but at the very least, he can give you a little bit of a cut, a little bit of an edge for as opposed to other bands who aren't playing at these venues on a regular basis. We're gonna do some other, in my opinion, fun stuff. Like I'll talk about how to prepare for recording, which is important because most bands don't actually prepare. They just write music and go record it. Preparing is the difference between a good record and a great record, or a horrible record and a good record sometimes. I've got some friends in bands that tour a lot, and they're fairly successful. And I'm hoping they're not going to be able to be here, but I'm hoping to be able to Skype them in and have them do a bit of a Q&A about things that I can't address because I've never headlined Warped Tour for a summer or anything like that, which will be fun. But I shouldn't commit them to something before. Maybe you guys have run into this, and I'm one of them. Musicians are somewhat unreliable often, so I don't want to commit someone to something and then have them drop out last second. But the third Tuesday of that month, hopefully I'll be able to say, okay, we're doing this in 45 minutes, please just get on Skype, and everything should go well. Other things I want to talk about. We'll spend one night on the gig kit. It's something that I assemble just to help be prepared at a show, because my opinion, it's a bit of it's a MacGyver box. It'll help you make sure that when something goes wrong at the show, not if, but when, you will be prepared. So we're gonna have one night talking about just proper promotion, things that you should or should not do. I've heard bands talk about, just upload the flyer to Instagram every couple of hours until the show, that's in 3 weeks. And it's like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. Things like that. So one of my friends works for a t-shirt company, and he's good at graphic design, and he's going to talk about things that are important when you are getting merch made. Not necessarily the graphic side of things, but more of the technical side, things you should look at, what kind of inks, what kind of shirt material, where you should order from, and things like that. If you hope to make money at shows, it's probably going to be on merch. So it'll be wise to do that properly, invest properly. I'm going to have a couple gear-centric events. One, how to properly set up and maintain your stringed instruments, whether it's guitar or bass, because people don't do that, and you should take care of your instruments. Another one, which will be really cool, how to build a pedal. There's going to be a guy who's going to come out and just walk you through the schematics and just a real basic how to assemble a pedal. You guys know what a resistor is. Things like that. That'll be fun. I know that's not as specific to just the music industry side of things, but enough people seem to talk about it and ask about it that I thought it would be cool. Then other events, talking about how labels function, what do they do, how are you guys using social media, things like that. And normally all of these events are going to be 2 hours long, and the first hour or so is going to be one of those topics, and the second hour, and really it's just the second part, it's as long as you guys want to make it, will be hopefully networking, people shaking hands, and I'm working on getting a pizza sponsorship, so maybe eating pizza and talking about, oh yeah, I just played this venue and this was terrible, this promoter was awful, or oh, by the way, this guy is going to make you try and pre-sale tickets, which is awful, things like that. Just things that you might not learn if you don't talk to people, and so hopefully by doing this we will have some form of a a central location where you guys can do this frequently, and maybe eventually it'll work its way into the online realm. Uh, if you guys hadn't noticed, one of the things that I've been doing is the Facebook event, and there's a website. It's seminar.gregsguitarlessons.com, because I didn't buy the domain. I just kind of linked it off my page. But I've also been posting all these cool industry-related links on the Facebook event, which things that I just see that are Oasis appropriate, that are relevant in the music industry. So today, Deep Elm, a cool like indie music label, they put their entire catalog up for pay what you want, and you could thank Radiohead for making that happen. But for a band to do it, that's one thing. But for an entire label to say, hey, you know what? Our back catalog is as good as the stuff we're releasing now. So, and you guys aren't buying it. What if it was pay what you want? So go, download a record for free, and then download the next one for $10 if you like it. I think it's pretty amazing, and it just shows the evolving culture of how the music industry is rolling these days, and the things that we, half of the articles that we had kind of found when we did the seminars the first time in, I think, 2010, it was just so long ago. The entire music industry is completely different. One of my most favorite talking points from 2010 was everything about Trent Reznor. Trent Reznor, to me, is he's a marketing genius in a lot of ways, and he's done some really impressive things in terms of fighting the traditional way music labels were working. And he was very much anti-music or anti-record label. Record labels are hurting bands, they're preventing new artists from growing, they're doing all of these things. And we had countless links. We had countless YouTube videos of people who were giving presentations, not unlike this one, talking about why everything Trent Reznor was doing was not only relevant, but changing the industry forever. And it's just amazing. And then 6 months ago, Nine Inch Nails released Hesitation Marks on a record label. That's the music industry is constantly evolving. He found that he had gotten to the end of the road with what he could do on his own, and felt that the trade-off of all the work that he had to do to make money off of his music, it was easier just to go, find a label that would kind of bend to his will and say, we will set up a contract that works within your parameters. And so now he's back on a record label, which completely undoes everything that he and I had talked about in 2010. And that's just the nature of the music business. So every time something new or cool pops up, I always try to find that article and I post it in the event page. And I'll be doing the same thing for the events in March. Some of them are cooler than others. Some of them are just little blurbs, but I always think they're fun. Did you guys check them out? Any of the ones that I posted? The ones I thought was awesome were Ken Mode. I don't know if you guys listened to Ken Mode. Just an insane, heavy, weird, like thrashy, screamy band from Canada. But two of the members are accountants and handle all of the bookwork for the band, and the band is set up really well to succeed because they are smart with their cash. Which it just shows you that every band can have like a little quirk about them that is worth exploring in terms of how bands are coping and managing themselves with the new era of music. And sadly, this new era of music doesn't really lend themselves well to have much of a long-lasting or successful career. You're finding more and more bands are supplementing their music with some sort of other career, which is unfortunate, just because it's not sustainable the way it was even 10 years ago. I used you can use Chevelle as an example. They're from Lake County, from Grayslake even, and when they got signed to Epic, this was 2001, and they recorded Wonder What's Next. I feel, don't quote me on this, but I feel like their advance from the record label was $300,000, and what that was to cover was producer, the actual recording, duplication, all of the expenses for tour and gear and all that fun stuff, because that should have been the record that broke them, and it did. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that most of you guys have heard of Chevelle at this point. They were fortunate. I consider them to be quite possibly the last band to make it. Every other band since then, my opinion, are struggling. At least to a certain degree. There aren't too many like huge bands, and realistically, you can thank the internet for that. Downloading hurts. I'm guaranteed that Chevelle's follow-up records, which probably could have sold more copies, didn't because of downloading. It's just sad but true, because illegal downloading in the internet obviously levels the playing field for all bands, but it certainly hurts the bands that would have been big. So another good example would be my friend Nick's band. He's in a band called the Wonder Years, and what's their big album that came out just before this one?
You mean the Upsides?
Yeah, the Upsides, right? Upsides, when that come out, 2011?
Yeah.
Okay. That record to me is akin to Chevelle's record before Wonder What's Next. It was on an indie label, and everyone knew that the next one was going to be the big one. Everyone knew, and the Wonder Years would be, like I said, a great example. Now, Upsides, I think, sold, at least this was last summer, between hard copies and downloads, was in the ballpark of 20,000 records, which is good. I would personally, I would like to sell 20,000 records. I have not done that yet. It's on my bucket list. But the next record, the one that they just released, which is a good record and was very successful, was not nearly as successful as it probably should have been. If they had released that record in 2002, like Chevelle, they probably would have gotten a $200,000 or $300,000 advance, and then it would have been a big successful record. But instead, they got I want to say it was a $30,000 advance from the label that they're on, which is a sizable indie label that's backed by a major label. So they approached the owner of the label and said, "Hey, we feel like we should probably get some more cash." The amount of money that they had prevented them from recording at the studio that they wanted with the producer that they wanted, and the conversation basically went like, we would like more money because we think we can make a better record. And I believe they got a little bit more, but the response was, if we double your money, will you double the album sales? And the realistic answer is no. And you gotta consider the investment these days. So it's tough to find a viable, sustainable career as a performing musician in the current marketplace, at least playing the stuff that you want to play. Now, if you develop a sweet gimmicked cover band like Hairbanger's Ball, you're probably gonna get $15,000 a show, at the right venues like Broad Stop and whatnot. And I'm not gonna take anything away from them because they play flawlessly. They're all monster musicians, and they are all, they're doing it for a living. They're very good at their craft. But I'm guessing a lot of you aren't ready yet to call it a day on your original music careers. You're hoping to sell 20,000 records too. But that's just the realistic side of things. I've found like a weird little niche in the music world where I seem to be staying afloat, teaching and recording music, the occasional like mixing work that I get, which is just people will upload their files to me and I'll assemble a song out of what they send me. Or I even occasionally get asked to play on records where people will just say, they'll send me an MP3 and say, here's a song, can you play on this? And I just record it in my basement and send it back. But those don't happen as nearly as often as they should. Sadly. So, again, part of why we're doing this is to make sure that you guys are all informed and are making the right choices in terms of how you're approaching your band, and whether it's a band or solo career or whatever it is that you guys have going on. But additionally, just so that way you don't fall into some of the same kind of pitfalls that a lot of other musicians kind of go through if you don't have someone like me yelling at you saying, don't do this, stop paying the rave to play. Drives me nuts. From here on out, I was wondering if you guys have topics that you would like to see covered. Just so I know, because I'm pretty open. Like I said, I have some things that I would like to work on, but I am all ears. I want this to be a give and take. This is not just a one-sided me yelling at you guys for periods of time. And it could be one of those things where I think everyone here knows me, so you could always just email me. But off the top of your head, do you guys have any things that you would like covered here? In general? What's that? Touring. Okay. What aspects of touring? Like the booking of the tour, or how to not get...
making sure that you're ready for tour, not just like sitting in the store.
Yeah.
It's a horrible idea.
Understood. More often than not, it's a horrible idea, so I understand what you're saying. Especially now. I always tell this story, and it used to be funny, but now it makes me want to cry, and I'll hold it together. But years ago, my band we were getting to California. We just left Vegas. We were riding high because we left Vegas with more money than we arrived with, which is, that never happens. Vegas wasn't built on winners, is what my grandpa used to tell me. But we got into Los Angeles, and we had a big truck that got 12 gallons a mile, and we pulled into Los Angeles, and it's just like, holy cow, we need gas. And every time we said we need gas, we all just kind of like, we dropped our head. And this was in 2003, 2004. I guess it was 2004. And we pull into the gas station, and the guy was out. And this is before digital readout boards at the gas station. And we saw the guy with the long stick and the suction cup, and he took the 1 down and he put the 2 up. It was the first time any of us had seen $2 a gallon for gas. And we're just like, how are we gonna do this? We don't stand a chance. Like, if we didn't make money in Vegas, this tour would be an absolute train wreck. Because at $2 a gallon, no band will survive. So here we are. We've already seen the mid $4 a gallon. So I don't know how bands like realistically expect to make money on tour these days, without being fortunate enough to go along with another band who's already successful. Because if you're driving to Michigan to play a basement, you're doing it because you love it. And that's kind of the reason you should be doing this anyways. But yeah, we're gonna have one on touring. I have a friend who's a booking agent for bands and often has tour managed, and we'll kind of talk about, what his role is, how he sets up shows, and how he makes sure his bands are protected when they're out on the road. But then we'll talk to other musicians who have been touring for a long time, and from like grassroots level, as in how many people can we fit in this van with our gear and let's go, to people, like I said, hopefully we can get Nick to Skype in from the Wonder Years, and we'll hear about him roughing it on his bus. Which we'll see how that goes. But yes, we will cover that on multiple levels. Any other things that are worth? You in the back? Smart and stupid band investments. Absolutely. Because there are a number of them. Most of them are stupid. So it'll be a long list, but it'll be fun. Yeah, I mean, there are how do I phrase this? You know, a smart band investment could be something. You know, if your band does not have an up-to-date smartphone, maybe an iPod Touch would be a smart band investment these days. You know, right off the bat, that's the first thing I think of. You know, it could be as a functional GPS when you're lost trying to get to a show, because you're going to get lost trying to get to shows, and you could stop at a Starbucks or something for some free Wi-Fi and be like, oh, we're in the wrong county. I've done that. So then you get to the show, and it could also function as your credit card reader, you know. So buying a used iPod Touch would be a smart band investment. Buying 4-color T-shirts because they look awesome, that would be a stupid band investment, at least from my perspective. I'm guessing most of you guys don't have a whole lot of cash in terms of the band fund, but you know, most if you haven't bought T-shirts before, I mean, a good price for a T-shirt usually is going to be a simple, crappy T-shirt that has one color and then one color ink on it. And in my opinion, if you do it right, you'll be able to get it in your hands at just under $5 a shirt. And then maybe you could sell each of those shirts. You know, I kind of gauge and this is a jerk thing to do, but when I had a lot of shirts to sell, I wouldn't price them until I got to the show and saw what the guy next to me was selling theirs for, and I was cheaper than them every time. And it worked. You know, part of it was we had really cheap shirts, so that allowed us to undercut the bands next to us. And obviously, it's a situational thing. Like if our band was playing on another band's CD release show, I wouldn't necessarily like, oh man, they're gonna get all the money. I should really undercut them. No, I mean, it's obviously their show, but there are times where you just be like, oh, $10, huh? I'll do $5. You know, you might not make a whole lot, but that $5 will go into a new shirt. And I personally, I would rather sell all my shirts and put that money either towards more shirts or more, I don't know, beverage koozies that seem to be the in thing these days, as opposed to sitting or having a box of T-shirts sitting in my garage after the band breaks up. So
The more you sell, the more your name's out there.
yeah, absolutely.
Think about Fugazi and how they,
Yeah.
maintain their presence because they sell stuff. They have cheap shows and cheap shirts, and practically everyone's heard of Fugazi before because they spent their whole career saying, you know what, we're not going to overprice this stuff. We're not here to make rich off. We want people to hear our band. So you can sell your shirts for $5 or $6. You're not making any money off of it, but your band name is out there. It's free promotion, essentially. So.
Yeah.
Conversely, there's Kiss.
Yeah. I mean, you could. I mean, if you want to have like Fet the Younger coffins at your merch booth, I mean, I guarantee that no one else will have those. So, I mean, there's that side of things too. So yeah, we will definitely kind of cover smart and conversely not as smart investments for bands. Man, I just invest in just piles of spare tires because you're going to need them, sadly. What else? What other things that should we look into in the future? All right.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how this would go, but like, I don't know how to communicate with your band members.
Oh, interband politics. Yeah. Well, first things first. Don't marry them. I'll throw that out there. That's a no doubt learned that pretty quick. No, but yeah, I mean things like that. We can definitely, talk about communication. Personally, I feel like bands or successful bands, everyone knows their role, and when that is working, there aren't a lot of issues. There's usually some guy he's kind of the technical guy, who will, help with, sound, like sonic issues, or like, hey, my cable's bad, and it's like, oh, I happen to have a soldering gun with me. Let me fix that for you. I've been fortunate enough to have that guy in the band, where at he was actually running sound at a show here once, and one of the mic cables was kind of funky. He's like, huh. He just took it down, walked over to the table, busted out a soldering gun, fixed it, and then plugged it back in. He's like, there we go. That always helps. Not everyone's going to have someone that crazy, but there's usually a technical guy. There's usually someone like the outspoken promoter guy in the band, like someone who's willing to annoy people to promote the band or deal with booking and things like that. Unless you're a band that's fortunate enough to have a Zach who does that for you, which is pretty awesome. If you guys need a guy like that, Zach's the guy. And more often than not, unless you're Fish, I feel like a lot of times there's someone who kind of has like the lead musical vision, who might show up with like a song skeleton and say, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. I have 2 or 3 parts. Maybe we could all work it out together. Or maybe they just show up and say, here is the music. Can you please play it? Those guys are fun. I'm one of those guys, I feel like, most of the time. Just like, here's your part. Please play it well. So I feel like if everyone in the band knows their role and respects everyone else, should be good. Sadly, going back to what I had mentioned earlier, musicians often are unreliable. I feel like each musician has like their own trait for whatever reason, and this drives me crazy. It must be like genetically, or like how our brains are wired. Like drummers are crazy, right? And it's that thing that makes them crazy that also makes them want to play drums. So I feel like more often than not, like you meet a drummer, you kind of know what you're getting into, because like, oh, they wanted to play drums, so they're just wired to be a little crazy. And if you're comfortable with that, then the band relationship goes well. Same thing with guitar players; they're unreliable. Almost all of us. So the thing that makes you want to play guitar is also the same thing that makes you like just tremendously unreliable. So as long as you are comfortable with that, in theory you should be okay. But yeah, we can. That's something we can kind of shoehorn into a. Probably I have like 400 bullet points of ideas of things I'd like to cover. One of them being like good rehearsing, and that's probably something that we'll group into the rehearsing event. Anything else? So we have touring, investments, and interband communications and politics. So that way you don't mayhem your band. It was mayhem, right, Justin? Where one band member killed the other band member. Yeah. So, yeah. Excellent documentary. Is it? Sam Dunn. What's it called? Yeah, Metal: A Headbanger's Journey, where this guy for his anthropology doctorate detailed the history of metal and some pretty amazing stories in there, like the guys in Mayhem killing each other because they're that metal. they don't have like asymmetrical haircuts and wear neon black shirts. Like they are actually metal, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, if there's anything else worth discussing, I'm down. Or if you guys have any questions or anything that you were hoping to get out of tonight. But like I said, tonight was a little more free form. The rest of them from here on out are going to be relatively structured in terms of topics that I feel would be valuable to discuss. But I'm open. Yeah.
Finding the right promoters.
Finding the right promoters in terms of like show promoters, like people you're trying to book.
People who actually work with you instead of just putting your name on a bill.
Yeah. Well, in Lake County, there aren't many, and plus, I mean, realistically, most of you guys, you shouldn't be playing Lake County too often, anyways. Like, I'm a firm believer, and we'll talk about this when we get into the more gigging. But like, you're gonna play a show don't play there again for a little while to make sure that you don't oversaturate your market. So you see bands who are, more often than not, they're younger bands because they don't, they haven't learned this lesson the hard way. But like, like, hey guys, come out and see us Friday at the Oasis, and come out Saturday, we're going to be playing Swing State. They don't realize that they're cutting their audience in half. In theory, half of them, in theory, will go to the Friday show and half will go to the Saturday show. And instead of just saying, we're going to play Friday only or Saturday only. From there, since most people are trying to play in Chicago, there is an abundance of bands, and show promoters at this point are very picky and more often than not don't care. And in my experience, what you see more often than not is a promoter might be willing to try you out. They have to see that you're a real band, because until you are actually on stage, you are just a fictional band to them. And I mean, and more often than not, these show promoters aren't actually at the show. But Fett the Younger, they're going to say, hey guys, is that still your name too, by the way? Fett the Younger?
Right now.
Okay, there we go. They're going to say, okay guys, I got you a show, and it's with other sweet bands. And you're going to be playing at the Mutiny, and it's going to be amazing. And you guys play Wednesday at 11:30 at night, and it's going to be awesome. Bring out as many people as you can. By the way, it's 21 and over. Mutiny doesn't have a floor, and if you can bring a PA, that would be awesome. And so the first time you do that, like you really kind of have to do that, because they have to see that you are actually going to stick to it. They're not going to give you a decent show. You're probably not going to see a Friday or Saturday show initially, because you have to earn it, and they want to see that you can bring out 11 people on Wednesday at 11 at night, and then they say, okay, you are a real band. You followed through. You have 11 fans. We're going to need those 11 fans for this Friday, Bill, and you have to. Like, I haven't figured out a way around that yet. With the occasional rarity is if a show promoter happens to see you play somewhere. Kevin with Wea, a good example would be Sam, right, from Anesthetic saw you guys at a house show, right, and then offered you good shows after that because he liked you. But that's the exception, and I feel more often than not. I say more often than not, more than I should, but
More often than not.
yeah. Seriously, you have to kind of do it the hard way. I've seen lately that at Reggie's, they ask you to play a battle of bands that they're having a lot, and that's their gauge as to whether or not you're going to have success at one of their other events, and they're kind of splitting things out a little bit. I don't know if you guys have all been to Reggie's. It's actually a really awesome rock club, sadly in a really terrible location. It's just a little too south for the majority of us. It's just on the other side of the city. Still the city. I think it's on State Street. But it's a sweet big room rock club that has a nice little restaurant and small stage next to it, and even a record store upstairs, which that's pretty amazing. So they might put you on a Wednesday night at 11 in their small little restaurant stage, and then they see like, okay, this is a real band. They showed up. They brought 11 people, and they might give you a decent spot on another night. And from there, like I said, they've been doing these Battle of the Bands things. You book them, and they're going to be like, oh, we have a Battle of the Bands. Why don't you come out and play this Battle of the Bands? And I don't know if that's a specific promoter who is booking shows through Reggie's, or if that's the Reggie's booking staff themselves. But in terms of trying to distinguish yourself to have success with with promoters in this, I'm assuming in Chicago and possibly Milwaukee, I don't think there's a secret to it. You just have to be relentless and make sure that they know that you are a real band and you're professional. But there's no way to bypass the minor leagues of Wednesday at 11 at the Mutiny. And as far as I know, I mean, Caught myself that time. A lot of the venues in the city are kind of owned by just a handful of people. So, one guy owns Lincoln Hall and Shuba's, and he's opening up another club. Joe Shanahan from the Metro, he owns another club, and it escapes me. What's that? Does he own the Double Door? I thought I was gonna say at one point in time I thought he did, but I was thinking that they sold it when he thought that they were gonna remove the grandfather clause. This was gonna happen a few years ago. Wicker Park and the Double Door 6 intersection area, which is amazing. It's a cool little area. Subterranean's right there. Double Door. There used to be another venue called the Note. That was all right there. They're actually going to make Double Door a Gap clothing establishment because that's what Wicker Park needed, was a Gap. So I was under the impression that Shanahan may have sold it, but yeah. So more often than not, I've been listening to a lot of talk radio, and they catch themselves doing this stuff a lot. So I've been trying to catch myself. But anyways, yeah, you might have to play at a smaller club that one owner owns 3 or 4 clubs and work your way up, because they have to know that you are willing to earn it. And like I said, I haven't found another way to bypass it. And it's tough a lot of times with playing in the city. I always recommend to bands, if possible, play venues that the bands you like play. Now, obviously, if you like U2, you're not going to have success trying to book yourself at Soldier Field. But yeah, no. But if you follow smaller indie bands, you'll notice that a lot of smaller touring indie bands do not play the Elbow Room in Chicago. But a lot of local Chicago bands play the Elbow Room in Chicago. Elbow Room, in my opinion, even though they've built it up and it's actually they've turned it into a decent little stage and light show. It's a pain kind of to get your gear down there because they used to have like this rickety spiral staircase, which was awesome to get your Ampeg 810 cab down. But these days they've these days they basically have a back line and they just say just use our stuff. But keep an eye out, see if any of the bands that you like and follow play there, because I'm betting that they don't. I think that Elbow Room at this point is merely just a bar in Chicago that happens to have a stage. Do bands that you guys like go and try to get a show at the Brat Stop or Austin's Fuel Room? Both cool stages, but you're probably not playing to the right crowd if that's the case. You should watch where the bands that you like are playing, and then go try to play shows there. Usually you'll have success just trying to open up. I'm always a firm believer in instead of trying to present a bill to a band, to a promoter in Chicago, like, hey, me and these 4 bands were really close. We draw well when we're all together. Things are great. I think you should book us. I personally think that if you recognize any member or any people in your crowd, at more than 2 or 3 shows, you're probably doing your band a disservice because you're playing to the same people over and over again. So if you see a cool band coming to Chicago, even if they're small, and in fact it's probably better if they're small, because that means you actually have a realistic shot at doing it. You email the band and you email the promoter and you email the club, and you say, I would like to get on that bill and open it up. I will do whatever you need. And see if you have success that way. That will be far more effective at promoting your brand and expanding your fan base. And I had a handful of students this past weekend. I think it was this weekend. The Howler show was it Beat Kitchen this Sunday?
Yeah.
Cool bands, all cool bands, and it was Cheyenne Line, which is an indie band from the area. Howler, which is Jack Torrance. A series of awesome Lake County bands that are all really good and are close, and they're all playing the same place in Chicago, meaning the same people who would come see that show at the Oasis are probably going to drive down and play the Beat Kitchen. When that's that's a great opportunity for them, for any one or maybe two of them, to expand their audience by jumping on a bill in Chicago with bands that they haven't played with. Instead, they're promoting to the same people who are going to see them anyways. And I hope. Did you guys get to that show? Yeah, me neither. Because I'm gonna see that show the next time it happens, and it'll probably happen here in some capacity. So why am I going to drive downtown to see it? Versus the few people that were there had probably already seen most of those bands. And if I have the opportunity to play a cool venue in Chicago like the Beat Kitchen, I'm hoping that I can play with a series of bands that are better than mine, have more fans than mine, and will promote as hard as mine. So that way, when I get there, I see a bunch of people I don't know. Because like I said, it's cool to have diehard fans or diehard friends who are going to support you. But those people have already bought your shirt, they've already bought your CD, or illegally downloaded it because they're jerks, or you gave it to them because they're your friend. So you're not. All you've done is driven an hour with your band to play to the same people, and that hurts. It hurts what you're trying to do, in my opinion. And if that show went the way those shows go frequently, because 3 or 4 Lake County bands are playing at a place in the city, now that hurt their stock and their brand with the Beat Kitchen. Just as an example, I've got no idea how it went. I hope that there was 400 people there. And they're all kickboxing each other trying to buy merch, but realistically, it probably wasn't the case. And so now my concern is one of those bands, Ah Howler or Cheyenne Land or Jack Torrance, emails the Beat Kitchen and says, "Hey, we want a show. We played there before. We're totally pro. We're legit people." And they're gonna be like, yeah, you guys didn't really draw as well. I kind of feel like maybe there's another venue that you should check out. You should try the Mutiny. They don't have a floor. And that concerns me, because I want every local band to find some success, because again, it's a community, not a competition. So even the terrible crabcore bands from the area, I wish them the best. But I'm hoping to develop a list of contacts for reasonable PR people in the city that can help you get into, like I said, clubs that, in my opinion, are worth checking out. Like Elbow Room is a cool place to play, but like I said, you're playing to a limited audience, because the bands that you are playing with probably aren't coming through. Yet, Quencher's, a decent little bar that has a club off to the side, is the last place you think you'd see a show, but sweet bands play there all the time. And if I got to pick the really kind of crappy little room that had a relatively poor PA versus the Elbow Room that has a really nice PA and a back line and lights and all that stuff, I'd play the place that is more likely going to have the bands that are similar or like-minded, because I feel I have a better chance of success there. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I've got. If there are any other random questions or anything, I'd say shake hands with each other, get to know each other, grab some free amazing stuff from Polyvinyl Records, which is a pretty fun record label that was willing to send us stuff to give to you guys, because they see this the way I see it. It's an investment. If you guys are doing things more professionally and you become good bands because of it, everyone wins. It's an investment. It's why the Oasis is here. We're trying to let young musicians find, kind of learn the ropes, learn to be successful, so that way later down the line when Polyvinyl is signing bands, they can say, oh yeah, we gave out some free CDs and posters to those same kids because they wanted to be professional musicians, and now we know they're professional musicians. And if all goes well, each each time we do this, we should have some more free goodies. There's a few other fun labels that have agreed to send us stuff. But worth noting, labels more often than not are run by musicians who are unreliable. So Polyvinyl obviously is on the ball. We had some other people say that they're willing to send us some stuff. We'll see if that happens. Any questions or anything? No? Well, the four of you who don't know each other, go meet everyone else and make sure that you guys are all on the same page, because this is how it starts, right? This will be our fight club. But the rule here is talk about this. Tell everyone you know. Share the event, because next month will be cool. It'll be bigger and better. And like I said, if all goes well, with pizza, and that's the most important part, right?
Yeah, that's why I was here. I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, you're disappointed. I'm disappointed. Cool. Well, thanks, guys.